The Elder Kai was running rings around the brigade, and with each passing hour, they started to experience some doubt regarding the real purposes of this ritual. Their limbs had gone numb, their throats were dry from the lack of liquid, and their bladders, or the space equivalent of bladders, it could easily be their glue bark, were quite the opposite. They were also rather sleepy, and to add insult to injury, everything started to itch. Jace was taking it easier than the other three. After all, this wasn't his first rodeo, as you may know from previous parts, but still, he didn't think that he would have to subject himself to this sight again. Initially, the way the old man was moving was fun, whimsical, entertaining, but, understandably, after 20 or so hours of this, it began to annoy them. But nevertheless, they tried to keep a brave face. But Berta was starting to get a slight suspicion that Guldo had stopped time a couple of times to relieve himself without the old man knowing. Hopefully, he thought, this wouldn't mess up the ritual. At least it didn't mess up his trousers. Finally, after a full day and a bit had passed, they felt a difference. First, every ailment that they had felt due to the whole process had immediately disappeared, as if someone had just come along, taken the thing away, and walked off. The tiredness had faded too, as if they had just woken up after a full night's rest, invigorated. Every single one of them could feel not only their own increase in power, but also that every single member of the group were feeling the same, like they were attuned. It was like a chain. As long as they were close, there was a new level of synchronicity that they had never experienced before. And these guys were tight. Now, they were even tighter. They were very used to working with each other before, but this was beyond their normal understanding of the concept. And weirdly, it didn't feel weird. It was as if their very heartbeats were now one and the same, despite each one of them coming from a vastly different species. So, how do you feel, eh? Old Kai scratching his ear casually, sitting on the grass and shaking off a stone that had got stuck in his shoe during the dance. I hope it helped, because I am not going to do it again. Raccoon saluted, and the rest of the brigade followed swiftly. Raccoon thanks you, esteemed Elder Kai. We have indeed felt the effect of your exquisite ritual. We believe that it will help us best the evil that lurks in the future. The old man shrugged. At least you behaved, I'll give you that. But don't get your hopes up, bub. If Goku and Vegeta have problems with this one, well, we shall see. Goldo pondered for a while after hearing those words from the Elder Kai. Well, we should try anyway. But isn't the time machine too small to take us to the future? Jace glanced at Kibito, who was watching this from afar, and wasn't all that happy that he had been spotted. We could always ask the Supreme Kai or Lord Waste to take us there. Don't they have their own timer thingamajig? Berta scratched his head. I mean, it's a good idea, but I don't know if we haven't tested the patience of the gods quite a lot lately. 16 approached them and gave them a very calm look.
Negative. I don't think they would be curious to see what you are able to achieve with this new power. And I presume that they would rather see this threat dealt with.
Aye, Master Kibito. Any chance you could hook us up with the Supreme Kai? We kinda need a transport to the future.
We are not a taxi service,
Kibito grumbled. But we can't help defend the universe if we're not in the right place at the right time. You do know that, right? Kibito hated to agree with Mortys, but in this case, they could use all the help they could get. The attendant of Shin teleported them back to Earth, where Beerus, the other Kai from Universe 10, Goasu, and the Saiyans were slowly licking their wounds after their own encounter just now with Black. The brigade didn't need to be unusually insightful to see that both the time traveler and the visitor from another universe seemed particularly distressed. Jace knew the reason why Trunks would be extra upset, and after a few moments, he realized Goasu's source of turmoil. The old man was blaming himself for all of this. First, they approached their old buddy with the sword. Hey, mate, you holding up okay? The Brentian asked. Trunks replied, I can't just stand right here while Mai is in grave danger. Everyone in the future is. I hope we can regroup and get back there quickly. Goku's going to try and learn the evil containment wave. Maybe then we can win. Trunks, don't worry. She'll be okay. Jace nodded slowly. Mai is tough. Tough as old boots.
Yeah, she's really badass to simply get hunted by that freak. Besides, now we're all ready to get ourselves stuck in.
Goldo tried to add some enthusiasm to the party. You do? But the time machine. There's not enough room for all of you. Berta looked at Beerus, who was observing them expectantly. Let's just say that we're going to be asking many favors today. We've taken special training while you've been gone, you know. Just to help us. You guys, thank you.
Do not fret, Trunks. The Chase Brigade and Raccoon never leaves friends in need.
The giant patted the time traveler on the shoulder with his mighty palms. Yeah, shame we don't have you in my timeline. Jace nodded slowly. He allowed the rest to cheer up Trunks when he walked toward Goasu. Can I help you, kind mortal? He could sense that the old man was not entirely in the room, as the dark thoughts surrounding his head were clouding his judgment. Master Goasu, how are you? After all of that, I don't think many people asked you for all of this. The Kai was surprised by this question as he looked in the distance. Not particularly well. This was unexpected. But at the end of the day, I do feel as if I have failed. And because of my failures, my future and all other futures is at stake. I should have seen him falling toward darkness, mortal. I should have. It was there in plain sight, and I was a fool. Jace waited till he finished. No, you just wanted to see the good in him. You may have made some mistakes, sure, but in the end, he made his decision himself. You didn't make it for him. You probably don't know much about us, but me and the boys there, we had a different leader before. We changed our loyalties and decided to help others, though. He always missed what we were before, back when we were working for Frieza. We've turned another leaf. We didn't want to see it, even though there were clear signs of him longing for that life. And it ended up with him betraying us. And even though before his death, he kind of turned around, that first incident still hurts. But we wanted to see him as a good guy. He made his own choices, and so did Zamasu. Gods or mortals, we're responsible only for our choices. I don't think you should torment yourself with his decisions, because I don't think there is much you could have done. Goasu gave the Frenchian a sad, sad smile. I don't believe that is entirely true, but thank you for your kind words, mortal. What is your name? Jace, sir. Goasu nodded slowly. You have a good heart, Jace, and so do your crew, from what I have seen. Jace looked confident. I have the best brigade in the entire multiverse. If you need help with any sort of threat, we're for hire, you know. Goasu chuckled softly for a moment at the enthusiasm, forgetting about his own inner turmoil. Well, I don't know how happy the higher-ups would be about that, but I will consider your offer. And after all of these meaningful conversations played out, it was time to head for the future for one last crack at the whip. Whilst the Saiyans were able to use the time machine, the brigade would have to travel with help of both the Supreme Kais and Whis. They could expand the power of the time ring to be able to take them into the other timeline. But the caveat was that they would only be able to remain there for 4 hours. After that, they would be sucked back into their own time. 4 hours is all we need, said Vegeta, nodding respectfully at Jace. And so, they arrived. Goldo had to admit that Jace's tales did not fully explain how dreary the whole place had become. It was as if someone had sucked out all the color and hope from Earth in one go. It was quite horrible, but they had no time to waste, as the enemies had already found them. 2 terrifying figures, one being the dark version of Master Goku that they had already encountered in the past, and the other, Zamasu, was just a Kai. He felt so trivial, yet they knew that he was formidable from what they had been told, but the first impression was lacking. So, you're back, this time with the entire circus. Splendid. Black began to taunt them.
Samos, I heard everything that you did from Beerus. I am very disappointed in you.
Goasu's voice sounded unusually hoarse. There was a hint of panic amongst the two villains, but they quickly realized what was happening. This one was from the past. Before Black, though, could realize what was going on properly, he then had the problem of Vegeta's fist in his face. The prince had gotten stronger since they last met, and the body snatcher didn't like that. While Zamasu was trying to aid himself, Goku stood in his way, also gaining an advantage over him. For now, the rest was standing by, watching the Saiyans take on the challenge first. But it seemed that the whole scuffle was going well for Team Past. After some time had elapsed during the combat, Black started to create some clones, which began to slightly overcrowd Vegeta. This felt like the signal for Trunks and the Brigade to enter the fray. Whilst they weren't doing all that much damage, the copies had a very hard time trying to hit them. But still, they missed the time frame when the real Black was able to slip away and get to Zamasu, who handed him over an earring. That wasn't good. They then witnessed a bright flash of light. They had seen the birth of a new and improved fused Zamasu, and this being seemed to be on a whole other level. While the clones had disappeared, even the Saiyans had a hard time even laying a hit on this thing.
Goku, we need to contain them,
yelled Trunks. Yeah, but you need to hold them up for me. This proved to be a nearly impossible task as fused Zamasu was constantly on the move.
What can we do, Jace?
Goldo yelled. He just needs to stand still for a while, that's all. 16 nodded in agreement.
According to the data I've gathered about the evil containment wave, affirmative.
Jace looked at Trunks. Hey, ready to give Goku some time? Trunks nodded back. All right, soften him up if he's moving too much. And the entire brigade went to fly towards fused Zamasu, with Trunks in the middle of them. He was so drunk with power that he hadn't even recognized them as a proper threat.
Coming to see my magnificence, Trunks. My godly performance.
The brigade closed their eyes. They felt as one. Every single second of blood flow between them, they sensed. And to their surprise, even 16's internal fluids could be felt. They were traveling as one, as a ring of 5 individuals, rotating around the deity. And they could feel it all. Berta's speed, Raccoon's strength, Goldo's time stop ability, Jace's superior ki, and 16's analytical mind. They had it all. It was in all of them. And when this fused monstrosity was monologuing, all of that was directed towards the middle of the ring. And after a moment, much to fused Zamasu's surprise, something was off. Those clowns that he hadn't seen as threats before were all holding their breath. He had seen that everything around him was starting to move faster and faster. They had put a time lock on him. He shrieked like a beast, trying to break free, and the living ring rotating around him with great speed started to vibrate furiously. For everyone else that wasn't fused Zamasu, it seemed like the villain had slowed down, but a dark purple light started to appear around him, hitting those around him. Trunks! Trunks! Hit him! Master Goku, we can't hold him for much longer! Trunks focused on his blade as his hair changed color to a bright yellow. When he focused on the sacrifice of his people and all of the atrocities that this thing had committed, he raised his sword, which became light blue. As it grew to a gargantuan size, he cut through the fused shoulder, leaving a massive cut in Zamasu's body. But some energy tried to escape through it, just in time for Goku to finish the sequence for the Mafuba. And at that precise moment, fused Zamasu was, for the lack of a better word, bottled. The Jace Brigade fell to the ground. While the sensation they had felt was incredible, each of them felt the exhaustion of 5 beings. Even 16 felt fatigue for the first time. It was an odd sensation.
Why do I feel like I need my oil checked?
Goldo shook his head. We did it, Trunks whispered. We finally did it. Goku scratched his head. Well, not quite. We gotta take this bottle away to a secure location. Gowasu looked at the Saiyan and nodded slowly. I think Kusu may have an idea or two of where we can store it. Kusu? Said Goku puzzledly. The attendant of my life-linked destroyer god. Oh, you guys have one too. Cool. They quickly rejoiced at the arrival of Mai, who embraced Trunks. It turns out she was taking aim at fused Zamasu herself, also trying to aid the group. Before everyone would return to their timelines, they decided to feast with the surviving remainder of Earth's defense force. It would take a long time to fix this future, but Vegeta had promised that he and Bulma were going to send help their way. The brigade also said that for the time being, they would stay for a while and help with the repairs. Trunks was moved that they decided to do that, but Jace was sure that Bonyu could run things in the HQ for a while on their own while they were not there. This happy atmosphere caused no one to notice that someone had been watching them. An old spy drone was recording everything, sending information back to another group of survivors. Survivors entirely forgotten to time. It was an old Frieza Force vessel with two people, one looking like a short-haired, scarred version of Jace, and the other sitting in the shadows on the massive chair.
Say, Captain, is it an interesting development?
It surely is, Jace, my boy. It surely is. We have to learn how they attained such power, and if it is in our grasp.
A light purple hand curled up into a fist.
Gather the rest of the boys. It's time that the true Ginyu Squad return in a big way.
And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now.